Teenagers soon will be waving goodbye to mom and dad and saying hello to their independence. And that is why August is the perfect time for parents to talk to their college-bound children about managing their money. And here to give us a financial crash course is Skip Cowen and Emily New, both of Focus Foundation. And I'm so happy to have both of you here. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Well, you know, a lot of people are excited about getting back to school, and we have to focus a lot on the economy right now. And actually, a recent study had found that 3/4 of college kids will engage in risky financial behavior. That's a lot of people. That's a big number. So Skip, tell us a little bit how a parent should just begin the conversation about getting their fiscal responsibility in order.
Well, I think you start first with by looking up the word restraint in the dictionary.
What's that? Yeah.
And figure out what that means.
Sure.
We like to look at things on the basis of needs and wants. And if you help your student define what a real need is, a book is a need, definitely. Going to class on time is a need.
Yes.
Perhaps transportation is a need, but is pizza a need?
No, but I might argue that when I was in college or today.
Well, sometimes the emergency occurs.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
I think if you have a basic discussion about needs and wants, that's going to serve you pretty well.
I think that's a great way to start. At this age, I still have a problem with defining my needs versus my wants. I think we all do, right, Emily?
Absolutely.
And I think what happens is there's a lot of common financial pitfalls that young adults fall into. So could you tell us what some of those are?
Sure. The biggest one that we see, actually, most young students, young people, the biggest purchase that they make is a vehicle. And so what they do is we go onto the car lot and we see this shiny new car that we think we have to have, and whether it's a need or a want, as you said, is a little bit tricky. And the problem is they get into this really expensive car, maybe a $500 a month payment, and it makes all of these other bills a little bit harder to cover.
It's a great point, and I think what happens is also sometimes we strive for these great things at these young ages, and then it gives us nothing to work towards.
Right.
So I think that in itself is a good reason to kind of start smaller and build up and have something to look forward to as you continue to grow financially.
And it's not to say you're never going to get that car, but maybe a little bit later.
Exactly, and I think setting a budget in general is just very hard, no matter what age you are. It doesn't matter if you're an adult or a kid. So what expenses should the college student be prepared to prioritize?
Well, of course you have to eat. You have to have a place to stay, so you need shelter.
Okay.
Of course you have to be able to pay your tuition and your books. Those things are first and foremost. If you have a cell phone bill, you need to be able to pay that. So you need to prioritize what has to be paid. Those have to come first.
And really look at what has to be done. Again, emphasizing the needs versus the wants.
Needs and wants. It's a tough balance, but it's got to be there.
Okay, well, once you get to that age, sometimes I think kids start to feel like, now I'm independent, I'm going to college, so I can make my own decisions. So in that sense, how much control should a parent actually exercise over their child's spendings once they get to that point in their life?
My thought there is that it ought to be 100% for an entering freshman in college. And the reason for that is because that's where the general mistakes are made.
Okay.
And those mistakes can literally haunt a person for the next 20 years if they're that bad.
No kidding, no kidding.
So 100% to start with, and then begin to ease off. I think it makes some sense.
Sure.
And certainly we all want to be independent, and college is a big step in that direction.
It definitely is. But I think parents should not feel guilty for still being in control of those kind of choices at that stage, because it does help shape their choices for the rest of their life, like you said.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of parents start to feel like, well, I don't want to do that and make them feel like I don't trust them.
Right.
Do you find that that's an issue that happens a lot?
It is, but you know, when you start looking at the evidence of credit scores being destroyed as a sophomore in college and lasting for 10 years beyond that,
yes,
then there's a reason to exercise that control.
Yeah, well, let's talk credit scores, because a lot of what happens in your credit scores is based on how you spend on a credit card. So should parents actually allow their kids to have a credit card when they go to college?
Oh my gosh. No.
No, don't do it.
No. The best way, in my opinion, is a prepaid debit card.
That's great. Great idea.
And that makes sense. Now, it's going to vary in terms of family to family how much you want to put on that card, depending on your personal financial circumstances, but start with a number.
Okay.
And the beauty of it is that when the dollars run out, there's no more.
You can't go into debt. You
exactly.
can't. That's a great point. I love that idea. I wish I had done that.
I think we all do.
I learned that the hard way.
I learned the hard way too. I still am. But you know, I think in addition to making the right choices in your credit, you also need to know the banking basics. And so, Emily, are there certain steps in banking basics that every kid and adult really should know?
I think so. I think most of us grew up always having a savings account. You know, our parents said you have to save a certain amount of your money,
Piggy
some
bank.
birthday money, a piggy bank, absolutely. And then when your child becomes responsible, maybe in their teen years, take them back to that same bank and let them get a checking account and explain to them how that works and the details of balancing your checking account every month.
That's great advice, and that makes a lot of sense. And dollars and cents, right? Well, you know, many students these days are also going to be needing financial assistance. I mean, we know what's going on in our economy right now. We know what's happening with the job market. So, you know, with their college educations, they're going to need help.
Right.
So, what would you recommend regarding student loans?
Well, student loans are not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
I think that they get a bad rap because you hear about people who run up a lot of numbers and paying back forever and ever. I think the key here again is the word restraint.
Okay.
Keep in mind that the federal government has now taken over student loans.
Right.
So there's a cap on how much you can borrow.
Well, regarding New Mexico specifically, is the lottery scholarship actually enough for students to be able to participate?
Emily, you have much more experience with that than I.
You know, it really depends. Again, it goes back to the needs and the wants. We always advocate that you should be working while you're in college. It's a great way to, whether you're doing work study, but to keep the funds coming, still be working while you're in school.
Okay.
The lottery scholarship will cover your tuition.
Just tuition?
Just tuition.
Okay.
Which excludes your fees, which excludes your books, which usually excludes living expenses. The first and foremost thing that we advocate people do is to take advantage of the scholarships and the free money, the grant money, before you go the student loan route, because you have to pay that back. So take the free money first and foremost.
Great idea.
Keep in mind also that with student loans, you can't bankrupt them ever.
Oh, that's
and
good
that
to
includes
know.
private student loans as well, and therein lies the trap, because a private student loan has a floating interest rate.
Oh, interesting.
And even though the Fed said yesterday we're not going to raise interest rates for 2 years, do you think that applies 4 or 5 years from now? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Probably
and
not.
most kids are in school for at least 4 years.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense. Great tip. Really good tip. And I think, you know, the extra jobs, maybe those weekend jobs will help with the things like the dorms and the food and the school supplies. And speaking of school supplies, real quickly, I mean, do you have any way that you could help us kind of prioritize not breaking the bank when you go school supply shopping? That was always my problem.
Yes.
Always.
Definitely have a list. If it's not on your list, don't buy it. It's difficult when you're at the store.
It's like grocery shopping.
Exactly. If it's not on the list, don't buy it. You see all sorts of new shiny things that you want to have, but stick to your list and prioritize on that list what you may not need right now. Some of those things you might need later in the semester. So get what you absolutely have to have right now.
That makes a lot of sense.
Very good tip. Yeah, I never did that ever. And that's not good. So, okay, I also want to mention something else, because you're giving such good advice here, and you two are actually also the force behind Focus on the Future. Now, that's actually currently reaching millions of students in 50 states. So tell us about what that is.
We filmed that program during the school semester.
Okay.
Beginning in September and ending in May.
Okay.
About 14 sessions per semester, and we cover every aspect of personal finance.
Wow, that's so great.
And these programs are shown in high school classes throughout America.
And you speak in terms, that's what I love, you speak in terms that the average person can understand. You're not talking in financial terms that confuse people, and that's really what helps everything make the most sense to all of us, adults and kids. And so I want to tell our viewers exactly where they can go for some more solid financial advice from both of you. So let's take a look on the screen. You can always email Focus at focusonthefuture.tv, and you can go to focusonthefuture.tv for more information, as well as to watch the videos that you do that really will help guide everybody, parents and children alike, to just make the right choices.
You bet.
Thank you both so much for being here. This was so informative, and I know a lot of parents and students will appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hope you'll be back soon. In the meantime, American Idol Season 6 favorite Sanjaya is up next. We'll tell you why he's right here in Albuquerque.